Welcome to Stars and Gripes, and those activist journalists we love to pick apart on this show, well, they face a very fresh battle of their own.
Congress is now one step closer to codifying President Trump's spending cuts on foreign aid and public broadcasting. Overnight, in a 51-48 vote, the Senate passed the package that claws back $9 billion of previously approved funding.
Well, joining me to discuss is Sky News contributor Kosha Gada. Kosha, welcome to the show. What do you make of this? What is Donald Trump trying to achieve with this legislation?
You know, I think it's a big deal for what has, as far as memory serves, has been a fixture in so many countries about publicly funded media, and it's sort of just become part of the landscape that must happen or must be something that we have, and it's for the greater good, it's a public service. Meanwhile, we know that they all are very political. They serve one side of the political agenda more strongly than they serve the other. And also the media landscape has completely changed everywhere. So it doesn't make sense to have taxpayer funding go towards these entities. And so what he's trying to achieve, and it looks like it will happen because it just passed the Senate, it's headed back for reconciliation with Congress, and it's expected to be on his desk to be signed in very short order, is quite monumental, cutting about $1 billion in funding that would go to the likes of NPR, PBS, and other public broadcast mediums. And it's a big deal. They're going to have to stand on their own, find other sources of revenue, tighten their belts like so many media companies in the private sector have to do, or change the product that they offer to the people in order to gain more organic support. It's also, I think, a big signal to other countries who should be the right side of the aisle, should be taking note right here in Australia, Canada, the UK as well, because if it can be done there, maybe it can be done elsewhere.
Yeah, well said. Well, now that publicly funded newsrooms like NPR are facing the realisation that they might have to come up with a substantial business model that doesn't extort taxpayers, the lobbying intensified.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
That was NPR CEO Katherine Mayha hitting back at suggestions that her organisation was biased. But where have I seen her before? Oh, that's right. Here she was, actively campaigning for Joe Biden in 2020. Seems super impartial to me. But okay, maybe those were just her personal views. Maybe she runs a tight ship and takes her responsibility using taxpayer funds very, very seriously. Well, some headlines on her website. There is no neutral. Nice white people can still be complicit in a racist society. Arguments that trans athletes have an unfair advantage lack evidence or support. A brief history of how racism shaped interstate highways. And of course, my favourite, is Trump really that racist? Kosha, let's bring you back in for your thoughts. I actually think that we've discussed this woman and her Joe Biden hat before because she pops up all the time. Her organisation is getting a fair bit of flack for its reporting. And sure, you're allowed to have your own political views and you're allowed to have your own perspective. But if you're the CEO of an organisation, what you say on Twitter, the hats you wear endorsing candidates, they're going to be used against you. That's your own fault. But if you look at the articles on her website, there is some very strange stuff there that taxpayers are subsidising.
Yes, she asked, Jack, and you delivered. When she's asking, give me examples, I'd be happy to take a look at them. You should send her that package, and I'm sure other people will as well. Not only is it so blatantly biased, it's also not rigorous or interesting. It sort of just feels like a copy-paste of the same dribble that the public deserves better. It's just not good journalism. There's nothing interesting. There's nothing investigative. There's really nothing in the public service. And again, we don't need it. The entire media landscape has changed. Social media exists that didn't exist back when these entities were founded and incubated with taxpayer money. The way we get our news, the way we consume our news, everything is different. So they have the same issue that eyeballs are for structural reasons not landing on their sites or articles anymore, on top of the bias that you're highlighting. And now they're going to have to stand on their own 2 feet if this package gets signed.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that people would actually, be able to work at an organisation like this is if the taxpayer funded it, because there's absolutely no way that anyone is going to kind of organically read those articles. Great move by Trump, I think. Anyway, moving on, the New York Times is facing a fairly major backlash after shamelessly supporting Joe Biden in the autopen scandal after just a 10-minute phone call. Now, for those of you not across the issue, it has been revealed that Biden was using an autopen to sign important documents, raising questions about whether the cognitively impaired president actually knew what was going on in his own administration. But this is how the Times framed this story. Biden says he made the clemency decisions that were recorded with autopen. It was a positive defence of Biden, but they took until the 32nd paragraph to reveal this, that Biden, quote, did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to the large numbers of people. Now, that's a pretty important detail, right? People were pardoned by the president without the president even knowing their names. Kosha, what's your thoughts on, I guess, the broader autopen scandal? The fact that you've got the president has more power than anyone on this planet, and that comes with responsibility and accountability. But they had a workflow where they're just auto-penning things, which raises all these questions. But then the secondary issue with this is the New York Times framing of it. And we know that framing matters, and a clever journalist can frame an issue in whatever way they want. What do you think's happened here?
So this is probably the biggest scandal in modern presidential history. Just the whole thing with Joe Biden's cognitive decline, the cover-up, the way that was handled. And now the dam is breaking. There are lots of Johnny-come-latelys that are coming out and reporting on it now, including the New York Times with this piece where they probably very begrudgingly had to admit even what they did. They are on the back foot, though. They are playing defense because this thing is just spilling out into the open. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has allegedly reportedly opened an investigation into this. Joe Biden very infamously granted something like 8,024 pardons in his last 24 hours that he was in office. That is more than the last century of presidents combined. Some outrageous statistic like that, including this very absurd thing that he did of preemptive pardons for people that haven't even been criminally charged yet, like Fauci and other people that were involved in the J6 hearing and everything else. So this is very interesting. It's going to actually, I think, only get bigger. It's never been tested before. If Pam Bondi and the Trump administration are testing the validity of these pardons, what's going to happen? What's the remedy for it? What's the legal mechanism? I don't know. I don't know if any court is going to take it up. But it's not going away. And the New York Times thinks they can, I think, sweep it under the rug in page or paragraph 32 as they did. It's not going to work because the story is only going to get bigger.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting as well because I look at this and you can really see the difference between how journalists would cover something that Trump does compared to how Joe Biden would do something. And if a former president came to me on a phone call for 10 minutes and said, look, yeah, I did pardon people and I didn't know the specific people, but I was across the broader strategy, I would say, oh my God, I have the most amazing story. The former president pardoned people, but he didn't even know who these people were. And I just know that if it was a Donald Trump situation, that's what their headline would be. Because that's, by the way, that's the right way to publish that story. That is the only way you publish that story when you've got that exclusive bit of information. But then the New York Times just turns it into literally everything is all right, nothing to see here.
It is so interesting. I mean, they have done that to Trump for legitimate things and wholesale illegitimate things like the famous Russiagate hoax, and they all patted themselves on their back and gave each other Pulitzer Prizes, and they've kind of become the laughingstock, they as in the media writ large, because of that, where they concocted a scandal that didn't exist. And here, it's always fascinated me that just from a personal career perspective, this is such a wide opening for a young, interested, curious journalist to really get into this now when the dam has broken and do some serious investigative journalism. This is such a huge story. And yet you don't really see anybody doing it. You have the Jake Tapper book and Alex Thompson a little bit here and there, but nobody's really digging into it, which fascinates me that ideology or being part of the accepted class seems to outweigh even wanting to build your own career as a young journalist, because this is, I think, the story of a lifetime for anybody willing to pursue it. Yeah,
it's their own careers that end up suffering. Well, moving on, Piers Morgan has clashed with our favourite journalist, Joy Reid.
I want to just play a clip of when you lost your job at MSNBC.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, I'm a Black woman. As a Black person, we have a different empathy toward other global South people when they are suffering. And so we're going to come at that story from a different angle. And I think that's not always received very well in the news business.
I don't think you were fired after all those years because of your skin color or because you're a Black woman. I think you were fired because your show just got increasingly unpopular. Why play the race card?
I love the fact that your play the race card is your version of the race card. You literally are so fixated on trying to racialize conversations with me, Piers, that I find it actually quite charming.
You racialize more conversations in your tenure at MSNBC than any host in history.
All right, I get it. I understand this is your shtick, Piers, and listen, game recognizes game. I get this is your game.
It's not my shtick.
The bottom line,
it was your shtick.
It is your shtick.
Kosha, what do you make of that?
So much to unpack here. I think that this is actually another example of just the landscape shift that's happening in media. We talked about it for the taxpayer-funded stuff, but also for private corporations like MSNBC, owned by the Comcast Corporation. These people, when they're having to be let go because they just don't have the ratings, the economics don't support it anymore, and now they're trying to make it out in the brass knuckles world of independent media, you kind of see that there's nothing there. There's no intellectual rigor, there's no depth, there's no it factor, and so when none of that exists, what they fall back on is the race card. Piers Morgan, is one of the few people who came out of corporate media and is actually making it as an independent journalist because he has all of those things, and he was giving it to her. And I think she feels like, to me, comes across as like a deer in the headlights who just doesn't know what to say. She's going to keep going back to that trope of racism being the answer to everything, and I don't think she's going to make it as an independent podcaster.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kosha Gada, thank you so much for your insights, as always. Really appreciate it.